You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your host, Rachel Christopherson. Each week in this time slot, we take a look at different issues, personalities, and events that affect you and our community. This year, Memphis turns the big 200. On May 22nd, 1819, the Bluff City was founded by James Winchester, John Overton, and future President Andrew Jackson. They named the city after the ancient capital of Egypt on the Nile River, the name meaning place of good abode. As the city's birthday approaches, we want to look back at how much history is planted in the grounds of Memphis and look forward to the future of the city. Joining us for the first segment is Jimmy Ogle, Shelby County historian. Mr. Ogle, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Well, Winchester, Overton, and Jackson are all street names that people recognize, but may not know the significance behind. We know who Andrew Jackson is, but who are the other two founders?
Well, John Overton from Nashville area, one of the leading politicians of that time up there. Not a war hero as Andrew Jackson and James Winchester were. James Winchester was from Castilian Springs, kind of northeast of Nashville. His home up there is called Crackfont. John Overton's from Franklin, just below Nashville. Of course, Andrew Jackson has the Hermitage there. And this was a pure real estate venture for him to build, lay out the city of Memphis in 1819 there. And the three streets north of Poplar are named in their honor, Winchester, Jackson, and Overton. Poplar's named for the tulip poplar that grows in all 95 counties. And the streets below there are named after the first 5 presidents. You see, and Andrew Jackson did that.
Well, why did they choose this particular spot along the Mississippi River?
Well, it's the highest piece of ground on the Mississippi River between Cairo and Natchez. So it's the high dry ground that the animals found centuries ago just to keep the little paws dry during the spring flood time of the year. The Native Americans followed their trails. The European explorers followed the Native American trails. The American settlers followed those trails, and then we paved Poplar. And we paved Lamar. There's the high ridges, and this railroad track here was the Memphis and Charleston Railroad track on the high ridge that connected the Atlantic Ocean with the Mississippi River in 1857. So it's about high dry ground, connecting paths that became roads and railroads and made us a transportation center.
Well, how did they develop the area in the first few decades?
It was slow the first 10 years and so. In fact, Winchester got out. Jackson eventually got out to become president of the United States, so John Overton kind of stayed in. They brought in John McLemore, and it wasn't till the 1850s when they started laying the cobblestones down on the wharf because it was very muddy down there. And that gave a good hard wharf, and then the railroads came in 1857. That made us solid. It made the Union really want to get occupation of Memphis in the Civil War. We're the 11th and final state to join the Confederacy. Tennessee was, and Memphis was very strategic on this Western theater. During that time, we were a sanctuary city. We didn't have that term at the time, but a lot of freed slaves or runaway slaves were coming into Memphis to Fort Pickering to gather up. The Union had a military stronghold here, so no buildings were burned or anything like that. It was one simple, quick 90-minute naval battle that ended up being the largest naval battle in the history of the world that made us under that occupation. That made us grow right then. So after the war, we're untouched and the fastest growing city in the West after that.
Well, talk about the impact the Mississippi River had on the economy back then.
Well, it was the expressway. It was the airport. It was the way there was, again, you didn't have cars yet. You didn't have good roads. You had railroads in the 1850s to the 18 or on up after that through the 20th century. But it was the way people got from one end of the country to the other. The Ohio River came down all the way from, the tributaries up there above Pittsburgh. The upper Mississippi comes from upper Minnesota. The Missouri comes from Montana. All down to New Orleans. So it was the central ocean of the country, let's say, and everything came by river and then by rail and stagecoach and then by cars and then trucks and then airplanes.
Well, what was Memphis like in the 1800s? Was it thriving?
It was a very rowdy town from the 1840s through the 1870s. It was a thriving town, yes, and then what the Civil War couldn't do to Memphis, the mosquito did in 1878. We had a yellow fever epidemic, the largest epidemic of its kind in our country's history. We lost 3/4 of our population by desertion and disease, lost our charter for 14 years till 1893. became a taxing district of West Tennessee, and then we started sanitizing our city a little bit better with sewers and good drinking water. We found our first artesian well in 1887, made us a healthier town. In-migration from the Delta increased, immigration from Europe, the Irish, the German, the Italian, and by 1900 we had over 100,000 people in Memphis, and during that decade less than 10% of the people living in Memphis were actually born in Memphis. So we've always been a big melting pot for the last 100 years or so.
Well, I want to talk about Orange Mound for a moment. Many people may not know its historical significance within Memphis. Can you talk about this?
Sure. It was the first neighborhood in America designed specifically for African American ownership. That was in 1890. The very first in our country, and to this day it is the only neighborhood in America that has 7 churches that are 100 years or older, and descendants are going to those same churches that their founders and their ancestors built. So it's very historic that way. A lot of doctors and lawyers and photographers, Olympians, Rochelle Stevens, Kennedy McKinney, people like that came out of Orange Mound. Of course, Larry Finch, one of the all-time heroes of Memphis in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, a basketball player, a lot of musicians. It's right there by the fairgrounds, right there by the railroad track. It's always been very important to Memphis.
Well, let's talk about the 1900s. Memphis was known pretty early on for its incredible music. When and how did the Memphis sound develop?
Well, in the early 1900s, 1909 to 1912, W.C. Handy came to town from Mississippi. A lot of people came up that blues highway. Beale Street was a place where blacks could congregate in Memphis in a segregated city. It was the field hollers, the spirituals, the work songs that became the blues, the country, and the gospel. They got to Beale Street, mixed up white and black. Rock and roll came out of there in the 1950s, and soul music came out of there at Stax in the 1960s. So W.C. Handy published the first blues song in 1912. Jimmy Lunsford was a teacher at Manassas High School who performed a jazz orchestra that went all the way to New York and rivaled Count Basie and Duke Ellington in the 1940s. We had the first all-black formatted radio station in 1948, WDIA. B.B. King and Rufus Thomas were 2 of the first DJs. 1950s, Sam Phillips was recording black artists. What Rufus Thomas told me, Sam was looking for a white boy who could sing black music, and Elvis came in there and sped up some blues songs. In 1955, Kimmons Wilson and Sam Phillips, Kimmons Wilson, who started Holiday Inns, thought it'd be a good idea to put a microphone in front of a woman and let her talk on the radio. So they started WHER, the first all-girl station. So not only did we break the color barrier in radio in Memphis, Tennessee, we broke the gender barrier. And then Jim Stewart and Estelle Axton, a white brother and sister, opened up Satellite Records in Brunswick, got sued for the name, bought the Capitol Theater on Macklemore, took the first 2 letters of the last name, the ST of Stewart, the AX of Axton, and made Stax, and that's the home of soul music. Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Isaac Hayes, Booker T and the MGs. So Sun had the $1 Million Quartet, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins. Memphis is the only city in America to have 2 Tony Award-winning musicals about its music history, and the only city in the world to be in over 1,000 song titles. That's the culture, and that's the change we gave the world, our great Memphis music heritage. Home of the blues, birthplace of rock and roll, cradle of soul, and crossroads of America's music.
Mr. Ogle, thank you so much for talking with us about Memphis's history.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll look to the future and find out how city leaders are fueling Memphis's growth.
We're running a 24-hour broadcast television station like no other school has done.
It is student run, it's student produced, it is student written, and it's student directed.
Here's to another 35 more years.
Students here get immersed in lots of different types of shows so that when they go out into the real world or to college, if this is what they want to pursue, they are so prepared.
Those lessons have also affected me in the ways that I would never even imagine.
It has shown me to be different and to, not settle for mediocrity. When you're producing a show, you want your show to be the best one it can be. You want it to be, a show to remember, a show that you want to look back on and say, I did that.
Yes, I did do this. Did I believe that I could do this? No, but because of all the support that I gained, I know that I can actually get this done.
I know that the skills I've learned here is something I'm never going to forget, and same with the experiences here.
From all of us here at GHS-TV, have a great day.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. Let's continue our discussion about Memphis as the Bicentennial celebration approaches. No city can truly survive 200 years without the help of business and economic growth. With us now to talk about Memphis's future growth is Morgan Worth, Memphis City Councilman and Chairman of the Economic Development, Tourism, and Technology Committee. Mr. Worth, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
There is so much growth happening in Memphis right now, but it seems like the city is really anchoring its growth around its core and high activity areas. Can you talk about this?
So, and we're in the middle of a process right now called the Memphis 3.0 plan. And it's supposed to be a 20-year plan for Memphis in growth, economic development, transit, as well as other parts of city planning. And one of the key concepts within the plan, we discuss anchor areas, anchor tenants is a big term in development. And we talk about anchor points for the city of Memphis. So you start looking at downtown, you look at Overton Square, you look at the University of Memphis and a lot of the growth and development that's going around on Highland Street. And so there's a particular focus, and you start reaching critical mass where, because you have a certain number of restaurants, certain number of retail stores or attractive areas that people want to come to, it's much more easier for more investment, whether that's investment from people living in Memphis already or investment from outside outside entities, outside LLCs and companies looking at Memphis as an attractive market where people want to live, people want to work, people want to play. And so development spurs further development. And we're seeing a lot of momentum in Memphis and a lot of different parts of the city, and it's been exciting.
Well, Memphis was recently named the city to watch in 2019 by Building Design and Construction magazine. What does this designation mean to the city?
I did not know that. But no, I think the mayor, this is an election year for city politics, and the mayor actually did a really good job capturing the word momentum, and that's a big part of his campaign. And I think others outside Memphis, like this magazine, the designations we're receiving it, are starting to recognize that. That there are a lot of assets, there's a lot of property in Memphis that is undervalued, and it's a great opportunity for people to come in and to be able to invest and make a profit. So we're on a lot of people's watch lists. I think it's been a secret. People in Memphis have known it for a long time, but now that energy and excitement is starting to spread across the South and across the country.
Well, the most prominent project in recent years is the reopening of the Crosstown Concourse. How has it met or exceeded expectations?
I was there last weekend. I think it has exceeded expectations just in the awe factor. You can hear about it and you can get the numbers and the hundreds of thousands of square feet and the stories and all the windows and what it used to be, but until you walk in and actually see that is almost a small city into of itself, with the stores, with Cumming High School, with the Church Health Center, with the brewery, everything that's being developed and going on there is one of the most impressive projects. And I expect it's been put up for a number of awards. It's won some awards nationwide. I imagine it's going to keep winning, and it's going to be an incredible example of historic reuse. And that's something Memphis is very good at, actually. So you look at a Nashville, you look at some other cities, and you'll see cranes all across the skyline of buildings. New buildings going up, and we don't have as many cranes in Memphis as other cities have, but what we do is we take buildings like Sears Concourse and we give it new life, we recreate it, it's local investment, and now you have the Crosstown Concourse, and it's an incredible example of what we're able to do with reuse in Memphis.
Well, anyone who has been to Memphis International has seen the construction going on there. How will this modernization help Memphis in future years?
Yeah, so right now we have about $500 million in projects of construction ongoing at our airport. And the airport's really critical. When we talk about business recruitment, we've got a business that we're trying to bring to Memphis. They've got major questions about workforce, about affordability of land, but one of them is also, if they are a business that needs to travel, do we have affordable and direct flights to where they need to go? Can they get to Tokyo? Can they get to London? Can they get to New York, DC, San Francisco? And so the more investment that we have in our airport, the more we're able to attract businesses here. It creates an increased demand for those flights. When we have that increased demand, we now have the availability of the airport to meet it. And we can, the two most important things about ticket prices, well, about tickets, is the price of the ticket and where it's going. And the more investment we put in the airport, the more we're able to have that access, not only for the businesses, but for the people who live here in Memphis as well.
Well, in what ways does the city of Memphis keep Memphis's history and culture in mind when adding renovations?
That's a great question. And we're still figuring out that balance. And that's going to be a constant tension, and not in a negative sense. There should be some tension about trying to preserve the old, preserve the culture of Memphis, as well at the same time be available for new investment and new buildings to come in. And there's some things that are, this is where very reasonable, like-minded people could disagree, and it's okay about what should be preserved and what shouldn't be preserved. And so there's no point in Memphis building these incredible commercial districts with bustling retail and shopping and restaurants and bars and everything that's kind of fun. It makes Memphis exciting. If we destroy a neighborhood that's next to it in the process, then we haven't done our job. So we got to make sure that the neighborhoods are preserved and protected, and we have great neighborhoods, and that we also have opportunities for people to come in and bring in visions from all across the country of different types of entertainment that would be fun for people living nearby to experience.
Well, Mr. Worth, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge of Memphis.
And it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Stay put. Once we return, we'll discuss how Memphis has become a center of opportunity and entrepreneurship.
This place, it's extremely unique.
You are pushed to do things that you didn't know you could do because someone else saw it in you.
If you're with us for your whole 4 years here at GHS, you get a great foundation of amazing classes.
Try the priest.
The approach we take to whether it's the fall play or the spring musical is that the students are truly the ones that are making the magic happen.
Tell all the people. You put the work in off and on stage. Not only are you on stage acting and playing a part, you're working, you're pricking your fingers, sewing the costumes, you're learning how to make exotic makeup designs, you're learning how to build the set that you're going to be planted on.
And as you grow with us within the program, your skills continue to develop, and we build off your previous knowledge. And hopefully by the time you graduate, you're a well-rounded professional in a way, and you can move into any area that you'd like after high school and succeed.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm your host, Rachel Christopherson. We are just over a month away from Memphis's Bicentennial celebration. Here to talk about how Memphis has inspired him and helped his business grow is Dr. Isaac Rodriguez from Sweet Bio. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much for talking with us.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, Memphis has been drawing young professionals to its business scene more recently. What has attracted these young entrepreneurs?
I think Memphis has its own unique vibe to it. It's not trying to be any other city like a San Francisco or like a New York. It really has its own identity. And when you can come to a city and really bring your skills, and Memphis is open to that, and they want to hear from people that are not from Memphis, it's exciting to be part of something and part of that growth. So I moved here from Virginia. I'm not a native Memphian, but to have a voice in the city, to have a voice in the progress of where it's going, but also to have some roots here really means a lot. So I think just the openness and the willingness of the city to have young professionals guide where they want to go, and not only that they're here, but what's going to keep you here. So that's been the question that I've been asked a lot is, okay, it's great you're here, but how can we keep you here? What can Memphis do to do that? And what can the business community do to support that?
Well, what is the thinking about having more young professionals in Memphis?
I think it's to continue the innovation too. It's to continue just revitalizing the city. It's had a great progression the past few years since I've moved here. So I think just having more young professionals here spurs innovation. We had innovation a while ago with the FedEx and AutoZone and Holiday Inn and Piggly Wiggly. Like Memphis was known for innovation, for music. So how can we reinvigorate that innovation side. Now we have companies like Indigo Ag coming in. That was a startup company. We have ServiceMaster moving downtown. We have FedEx moving downtown. So you're starting to see this influx coming back into downtown, and young professionals like to live, work, and play in the same area. So if they have an opportunity to work for a corporation that supports that, that's a great attraction. And if not, then you can start your own company, and there's lots of support here in Memphis to do that.
We'll talk about the networking opportunities that Memphis provides for its young professionals.
It has been insane. I've never networked like I have in any other city. I mean, you are one connection away from meeting whoever you want to. And since my startup was doing fundraising throughout the past 4 years, we've had one person introduce us to another person to introduce us to an investor. So people are really open to introducing us to their network. And I think the exciting part is it's not just the people that are out and about every day, but it's these high-level executives that are the founders of these companies that I mentioned earlier. It's these VPs and the CEOs of these medical device companies, logistics companies that are out there with you, and you can talk with them any day you would like to, and it's really exciting to see that they are investing their time in the city, in Memphis, and wanting to promote you.
Well, is Memphis filled with more small or large businesses?
Since I've been here, I've seen both, and it's really exciting to continue to learn more about the startups. And I think the large companies are here and they have a great presence. I'm in the medical device space, so having the Medtronic, Smith & Nephew, Wright, Microport, St. Jude, all those here are amazing entities. And then the logistics side, and on the nonprofit side, I think is where we really succeed. We have the most nonprofits per capita in any city in the country. So having the nonprofit sector and then this budding startup ecosystem, it's a really neat way to have everything in a city. So if you wanted to get your hand into something, there's always an opportunity.
Well, how do the smaller businesses in Memphis affect the larger ones and vice versa?
Yeah, we're taking the risk. As a small company, you're working on something that they would like to do, but maybe it's too risky. So in our space, we are going through the FDA. So we are able to take that risk, go through, and then at that point we might become attractive to a larger company where they would look at merging with us or buying us out. So we're able to promote the bottom line of a larger company by providing them a new product or a new service. But at the end of the day, we are able to take those different risks that a larger company can't. And it's just been an exciting journey for me personally as a scientist, now entrepreneur, taking that risk.
Well, like you said, you are an entrepreneur yourself, but you weren't always in Memphis. What specifically drew you and your ideas to Memphis?
It was a random coincidence, actually. So I graduated with my PhD in Virginia, and my professor, my advisor, moved to Memphis. He had a job opening, and he invited me to work at the University of Memphis with him. So I asked him, where is Memphis? That was my first question. I had no idea. So I looked on the map and drove 13 hours over here with my apartment and my car, and just took that leap of faith, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It's a brand new city, not a single friend, and only one professor here that I knew. So the draw was just, he said, we have an opportunity to start something new at the University of Memphis. And I wanted to take a leap of faith on that, but then the city is what kept me here. It was a 2-year position. I've been here for almost 6, so I've loved it ever since.
Well, why is Memphis a good place to base a business?
It was named a top 10 city in the country to start a company, and it's because of the resources and because of the networking that you mentioned. It's a mix of just the expertise that's here. We are good at logistics, we're good at medical device, we're good at home services. So basing a business in those areas are great here, and now we're starting to get on the tech side. But I do think there's a unique area here where there's a southern hospitality side of what Memphis has to offer. So you are always dealing with people with good intentions. And I think just having that culture in a startup is really important.
What difficulties did you find in establishing a new business in Memphis?
Raising money is always a difficulty depending on how much you're trying to raise, but Memphis has a great investment pool here for the early stage. So as we're going through the next stages and we're raising more money, we're having to go outside of Memphis. So that's something that Memphis is working on is, how can we attract more investors here? So I think the initial capitals here, if you have an idea, they have the structured programs like Epicenter, StartCo, BioWorks, 0 to 510. These are all amazing programs to help you start your company. But then the next stage, to get more money, that's what we're pushing more on now on this front.
Well, what kind of entrepreneur development do you see in the future of Memphis?
It's interesting to see the tech side and how tech can work with like ServiceMaster, for example. How can you get a smart lawn? How can you create the new medical device? So I think we're sticking with what's good in Memphis, and how can we merge cutting edge technologies with an existing corporations that are interested in innovating. So I do think a mix of tech and existing problems that we see in the larger companies are going to be an interesting field.
Well, you talked about how Southern hospitality has an effect on businesses. Can you talk more on this?
Sure. So we would go to like a networking event, for example, and we would talk with someone for 10 minutes, and at the end, we're just giving them hugs, like we've known them our whole life. And come out to this event, come out to my house for dinner, and we'd love to introduce you. So I think it's just that warm feeling that you get as if you're going to a family's house. So even though I'm not from here, I do consider myself a Memphian because that's how people make me feel. So it's good as on a personal level and the way that we can get involved with the community, but also on the business side where we just want to have a really good culture in our company, and you can tell that Memphis is providing that for us.
Well, you've mentioned Memphis's grit and grind culture as a fuel for your business. How has Memphis's specific culture and history affected your business in that way?
I think the medical device space specifically has really helped us out. They are experts in our fields right in our backyard. So having the collaboration with the research institutions or being able to go to these medical device companies and talk to their packaging engineers or their inventors on the technologies or their marketing department, like this is access that you can have. So Memphis medical device ecosystem has really impacted our company, and that's why we chose here. We had an offer in San Francisco to start our company there, but we chose Memphis because of all those medical device reasons, the expertise here, and then of course, like you mentioned, the Southern hospitality.
Well, Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
From the delicious barbecue and the prominent civil rights scene to business headquarters, Memphis is a center of trade, education, media, arts, and entertainment. Don't forget to mark your calendar for May 22nd. It will be a day of celebrations around the city as we honor our city's history and look forward to many more exciting years. Remember, Crosstalk can be seen each week at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 a.m., and 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Sundays. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web at GHS-TV.org, where we are streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Rachel Christopherson. From all of us at GHS-TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and I hope to see you again.